Sunday Comics. This is Fantastic Four, 165, 25 cents. This is part two to last week's Sunday Comics with the return of Marvel Boy, or as he was known in this particular comic, the Crusader. So, those of you who are new today, last week I checked this out. It was George Perez's first comic in the Fantastic Four that started his, I think, classic run. Joe Sinnott doing the pencils. George Perez doing the pencils and Joe Sinnott doing the inks. So, little bit of a recap. This is Marvel Boy, one of Marvel's original superheroes. Marvel Boy had he debuted in Marvel Boy #1 and then #2, and then I think the comic got canceled, and it went on to like Tales of Astonish or something like that. 3 and 4. I think they just changed the title, and that was pretty much it. Like a pretty much forgotten character, and this is his return. Now things have been retconned, and I'll talk about that later. But what you need to know is that the Crusader returned, and he's crazy. He's bonkers. He's killing bankers, and we'll find out why in this particular comic. And then his story got retconned and everything. But what we do know is that in the 30s, like it's Sunday Comics. Here's my coffee. Got the wet the noggin. Got an excellent night's sleep. Oh, excellent night's sleep. Just perfect weather for sleeping. But anyway, so in the 30s, what was the father's name? Ah, geez, I don't know. But the son's name was Robert Grayson, and the father's name was, I don't even know. Uh, I don't even know what the father, like Hayden or something pretentious like that. And he was a rich, well-to-do businessman, some sort of like banking tycoon. And he got a telepathic summons to learn how to build a ship. And he took his son Robert, and they went to Uranus, not Myanus, Uranus, and they met aliens there, the humanoid aliens, and they were retconned later on to become Eternals, because Eternals didn't exist, concept wise. As Jack Kirby didn't create the Eternals yet, but they were folded into the Eternals later on, and they trained young Robbie Grayson, a young human, to become Marvel Boy. He got these bands, and they gave him like living on Uranus. Living inside Uranus, he developed like strength and stamina and standard array of powers, and then like light flash, and he would flash the lights and then beat the crap out of you when you were blind. That was pretty much it. Now he comes back, he unlocked more powers, and he's blasting, and he's just super. He could teleport. He's doing a whole bunch of things that Marvel Boy was never able to do, and he's also crazy, and he's also going after the business partner of his father. So he's going around and like destroying the bankers, the banks, and all the people who swindled his father out of his money. And you could see by his eyes and expressions that he's like over pantomiming and crazy. And then we'll talk about the retcons and everything like that afterwards. I talked about it last Sunday Comics, but my policy is I always try to treat each video as if it's your first video. So I don't want to just assume that you know things. So for those of you who do know, forgive me for repeating myself, but I hope you understand why. That was a Marvel policy for as long as I can remember, that every comic book is your first comic book, and I think that's a good policy. So anyway, let's open it. First off, okay, let's talk about this cover. Wonderful Joe Sinnott. Look at that. But this is Ron Wilson and Joe Sinnott. So this is telling me that Marvel wasn't sold on George Perez yet. They didn't trust him enough to sell the magazine. He was still in the triad. He was still under probation. Because they would have put him on the covers. But Joe Sinnott, excuse me, I'm going to take another sip. Joe Sinnott, for those of you who do not know, was a long-term collaborator with Jack Kirby. They were partners. I think they had a studio together, and I'm talking like in 1940. Like a long time ago. And what they created Captain America. So Jack Kirby, Joe Sinnott created Captain America together. That's how long ago they were working. And Captain America, for those of you who may know, it has been around for forever, since I think 1939. I forget the exact year. And that's how long Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott have been collaborators. So Joe Sinnott is totally a big deal. He's totally a legend, even at this point, and Marvel trusts him. So Joe Sinnott is inking the Fantastic Four. I think no matter who the writer is during this particular period, Joe Sinnott is the inker. So they got Ron Wilson, who is a phenomenal classic artist, if you ask me, and Joe Sinnott. So look at that great cover. Look at that great cover. Oh man. You don't really see the word balloons on covers that much anymore. That's just such a old-fashioned thing. See a fighting mad thing battle as never before for his very life. He's up on the building. He's grabbing I was about to say Quasar because Marvel Boy became Quasar, or the Marvel Boy bands became Quasar. And there we go. All right, so let's open this up. What do we got here? Caches or prize? Okay, get crashes or crashes. Yes, get crashes. Wonderful splash page. I just love that. Okay, let's look at the indicia first of all. Fantastic Four. What year? Copyright 1975, but was it? Yes, December 1975. The Light of Other Worlds. I love that. Reed Richards just stretching his legs. I'm gonna go stretch my legs. So cool. You could start to see a little bit of the limitations in early George Perez artwork. The way the buildings are slightly off. But let's look at the credits. So we got Roy Thomas, writer and editor. And what could I possibly say about Roy Thomas that I haven't said a billion times before? Probably, to the best of my knowledge, and I just claim to be a super fan. I don't claim to be an authority. So, sometimes I do say things wrong. Sometimes I misremember things. Sometimes I'm just got wrong information. But I do think that Roy Thomas is one of the first of the new hires by Stan Lee, meaning like everybody from Stan Lee and before were already in comics. They were the people who pretty much founded the medium. And Roy Thomas was one of like a fanboy. He was a kid who grew up reading and loving comic books, and he's like, I want to write comic books when I grow up, and he did it. And he got hired. He was a school teacher. He was 25 years old when Roy Thomas hired him, and when Stan Lee hired him, and that's it. He became a living legend. He worked for Marvel. He worked for DC. He runs his own magazine now called Alter Ego, which I embarrassingly have never picked up. Walking Encyclopedia of Comic Books. So we got George Perez, guest artist. The last issue it didn't say guest artist. It just said artist. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And then we got and I could sing the praises of George Perez forever. But this is the beginnings of his career. I think before this, all he did was a couple of issues of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu and like the third tier story of the White Tiger, or the Sons of the Tiger. And then we got Joe Sinnott, the embellisher. This is he's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Like I said, when you embellish, you're doing more than just you're doing more than just tracing and inking. You're finishing off and you're polishing off the art. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. So like a normal inker is just going over the pencils and making them 3D. An embellisher is I think like finishing off some unfinished work, because again, I didn't know this until just recently, but Marv Wolfman, who became George Perez's greatest collaborator in the New Teen Titans. I mean, they became one of the most legendary runs of all time, if you ask me. Hated George Perez's work. He was his biggest critic, and George Perez couldn't stand George. When somebody keeps criticizing your work, it hurts. It hurts. But George was a professional. He wanted to do it, and he famously said, people were getting fired. People were losing their jobs. So he's like, I had to become better. So that's what he did. He became a legend. But anyway. George Perez was criticizing his work a lot, so I could see maybe the powers that be, they saw something in his work, and thank God they did. All right, so look at this. We got Reed Richards just stretching his legs and going to find out what's going on. Remember the last issue, the Crusader beat the crap out of Johnny Storm and sent up a flare, and here comes Reed to the rescue, and and then the Crusader killed the banker, and here he is in I think it was this Washington Square Park in Manhattan. Washington Square Park was on the path. If for me anyway, growing up in Long Island, at this point, we'd every Sunday we'd go to CBGB's and see the hardcore matinee. Just go see the punk rock show, and we'd take the Long Island Railroad, get on the E train, and then from the E train we would walk to CBGB's, and then we would pass through here. And at first I was like a 16-year-old Long Island kid. They used to call them the tunnel punks, and it would go through there, and people would offer you pot and drugs and whatever like that. And I was like, oh my god, I was a little good Catholic schoolboy kid, freaking out. Later on, it was like, I guess we looked like regular New Yorkers after a year of doing this, and nobody would come up to us, but we must have looked like, you know, you. I don't know if hey, I got a thumbs up. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen like those stereotypical movies about like kids going to New York City, like getting off the bus. Hey, look at the young chicken. So that's what we must have looked like. Just people used to come up and try to recruit us for cults. If you'll indulge a short story, but I had a friend. I still have him, Phil, and he always, like, at this point, he just looked like a poor lost soul. And he was sitting on a park bench in Washington Square Park. He said these two smoking hot girls came up to him and just started talking to him. And they're like, "You want to go to a party?" And he was like, yeah, of course. Teenage boy wants to go to a party with two smoking hot girls. So they went into a nearby building, and it was a cult. They were recruiting him. They were the honey traps trying to get him to join the cult. And Phil was always like a lost soul at this point in his life. And, he said he basically had to freak out to get out of there. He was like, until they had no choice but to let him go. But he said it was kind of scary. So I was like, wow, I want two hot girls to recruit me into a cult. So I would go and sit on the same bench that Phil went and just wait, and just like, But I must have looked either too confident or too freaky or whatever. I don't know what it was, but nobody wanted me to join their cult. No two hot girls ever sat down and tried to get me to join a cult. So I don't know. Damn cult. Who wants them anyway? So anyway, let's get back to Reed Richards. So he's stretching and I just get distracted by this fat lady. It ain't over till this fat lady cries. So Reed's getting brought up to speed. Okay, the police tell them what's going on. So this is the widow of the this is the widow of the victim. And this is a recap from last issue. And they're finding out that the Crusader's father, Marvel Boy's father, and again, father, because we'll talk about what actually, how it got retconned. He got swindled. Robert Grayson's father went to Uranus, not Myanus, and while he was there, he got swindled out of his business deals. Why does it matter when you never came back to Earth? But whatever, it's the principal thing. And now, Marvel Boy, now called Crusader, is coming back for revenge, and he's just murdering folks, and that's significantly different actions than he normally considered. He was like a goody. This was Marvel Boy came out when Marvel Comics was called Atlas Comics. Not to be confused with the 70s Atlas Comics, which was a different company. Marvel was originally Timely, and then then it turned to Atlas Comics, and then it became Marvel Comics. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. And this was during the height of the 10 cents plague, the big sketch. So Marvel Boy and all the superheroes were goodies at this point. So this is significantly different behavior. And look at the face. You could tell that's the face of a madman. So and then it's explained later in Agents of Atlas, which is one of the last new great Marvel property comics to come out. I thought Agents of Atlas was excellent. Good morning, Abrax. How are you doing today? Thank you for coming. Good to see people. Oh, we got 4 people. Cool. I invite you all to have a Slim Jim. Abrax, Jeff, and others who I don't know. We'll do some isokinetics, and we'll do some Slim Jims. And I talked about this. Believe it or not, I had one of these ads. I had one of these toys. These were die cast metal. So they were actually metal, and man, did they take a beating. And they had like a little spring in the base, and push push that handle back and forth, and it would go like tat, 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 tat. It would make like a vibration. It was pretty cool, actually. I like these. I tried to get them all because they were only like 3.5 inches tall. That was the scale of toys that I liked as a kid. I didn't like the Mego toys I got, but they were 8 inches. But once I saw like the 3.5 inch scale toys, that Star Wars toys came out at 3.5 inches scale, and that was it. I liked. And then for the longest time, I collect those Marvel Legends, the Hasbro and the DC figures that were 6 inches, and I liked them. But then they came out with a smaller line of, and I never bought those because I already had the 6 inches. I wasn't going to start all over again. But man, I don't know what it is. I still prefer the 3.5 inch scale toys. So here we have, look at this great splash page of Marvel Boys. So this is bringing everybody up to speed, telling everybody all the details, and with the wonderful George Perez. Just, I wonder who owns this full page. I don't know, this costume is old fashioned, hokey, and I love it. Just look at everything, the jewels. I love the Roman uh design on the collar. Just so good. I just love this. And he's displaying more and more powers that Marvel Boy never had. Marvel Boy could only, like, he was slightly stronger than the average bear, and he was I don't think he could fly. He could like leap, and kind of standard 50s superhero nonsense. Nothing too powerful. But this guy is teleporting. He's flying. He's using death rays, and then later on, these bands or given to S.H.I.E.L.D. for safekeeping, and Wendell Vaughn, who became Quasar, was able to use them and unlock lots of powers. So I think they what Wendell Vaughn was saying in the early issues of Quasar is, like, the more you unlock, the bigger the strain it is on your brain. So that's how they're explaining this crazy behavior. But Wendell Vaughn was like good and nonviolent, and a nice will, so it didn't really affect him. But the guy who was given Shield originally gave these quantum bands to somebody else, and he just blew up. He just blew up because he had a violent. His first thought was violence. Wendell's first thought is peace. So that's why it worked. Excuse me. So here we got the Fantastic Fours all assembled, and they got to deal with this lunatic. The problem is Wendell's teleport. The problem is Robbie Grayson is teleporting all over the place, so they don't know where to find. But at this point, they don't know his motivations, so they're having problems finding him. I just imagine how hard that would be to find somebody who could teleport. So Ben Grimm, typical Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm, I love Ben Grimm. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's pissed. People are dying. He's a good guy. He wants to help. So what is going on? He's furious. They're standing around. Sue, again, I hate to say it, but it wasn't even until like after issue 200 before Sue became like her own good character. At this point, she's still woman in the background. And keep in mind, I'm not the most politically correct person, and even I'm saying this, so it's bad. And Reed was cool. Reed was a charismatic, dynamic, action leader. I don't know what happened, but at some point they made him like I do admit, the first 10 issues of the Fantastic Four, Reed was kind of sinister. And I think, well, I know it's because Stan and Jack didn't really know what they were going to do with the Fantastic Four, and their personalities weren't developed. But that was a thing in the early Marvel comics. Look at the Hulk. How many times did the Hulk change? At first, he turned into Hulk at night. Then he needed the gamma ray to transform into the Hulk. Then it became anger. So they didn't know what to do with the Hulk. They didn't. Peter Parker, if you read the first 3 issues of Spider-Man, he wasn't really that nice of a person. He was actually a nasty jerk. Hank Pym, he was never supposed to be a superhero. He was just it was a horror comic. The man in the anthill. So they didn't. Marvel didn't know what to do with the original character. They kind of just fumbled along, and the Fantastic Four were no exception. The Thing was an angry, horrible monster. Human Torch was always the same. He was just like a glory-seeking kid. She had no personality. Like, not only was she the Invisible Woman, but she was the invisible personality. And Reed was kind of sinister. He was like a nasty, almost mad scientist. There's really no other way to describe it. And their personalities kind of developed over a year. Same thing. That was look. Oh, geez, look. The best example is Thor. He was the doctor who banged the stick, and he was a guy who was given Thor powers, and then later on he became the actual god of thunder, and that was just part of Odin's curse or whatever. So Marvel Comics had a history of we're finding our way as they go. So having said that, after the first year or so, Reed was a cool guy. They were a married couple that had their spats and everything, but that was also another Marvel trope. I mean, Reed, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, they were the same exact couple, same exact personality, uh, same exact dynamic, because that was Stan Lee's, just churning out 900 comics a month. But he became a cool guy. You wanted to be Reed Richards. It was cool to be a scientist. Now later on, I don't know what's going on since 2015. Is Reed kind of a jerk? I'm getting the feeling that Reed's kind of a jerk. So now he's going through all the possible motivations. He's figuring everything out. Also, keep in mind that Reed is slowly losing his powers. And I might be wrong on this, but at 2 points in the Fantastic Four history, they were trying to phase out Reed Richards. This was one of them, that Reed was slowly losing his powers, and I think that they were originally going to write him out of the comic and have somebody else replace him. And then at the last minute, they chickened out. Later on, if you remember, Reed Richards was killed somewhere around issue 300 and something. I forget the exact issue. And that was under the Tom DeFalco, I thought, the lowest point in Fantastic Four history. Those Fantastic Fours just stunk. And Reed was killed. And he was gone. He was out of they had Ant-Man replacing him to be the scientific and they kind of were going to try out new people to see who could be the new Reed Richards until they figure out what stuck. And they eventually said, we got to bring back Reed. And he was like kind of like beat up and defeated and like grizzled. I don't know. People keep messing with Reed. As you can tell, I really like Reed Richards. I like the dynamic of the happy family team. I I loved my father. He passed on sadly, and I had a wonderful relationship with my dad. So I like the happy family dynamic with family drama. There's times when I was a little kid, I hate you, Dad, but that's just the normal way it is, and that's the way the Fantastic Four should be: a happy family with family dynamic problems. And anyway, I'm ranting and raving. So just look at this cityscape. This is just typical. What issues approximately was the Tom DeFalco doing this? I don't approximately. It was right. I think it was culminated in issue 400. So I'm going to say the late 380. I will. If you remind me. Good morning, Fabrizio. Thank you for coming. If you want to come on and we'll talk about Horace H. Hoover, you are totally welcome to come. It's a wonderful comic. I'm now my brain is overloading because I had so much coffee and I had a good night's sleep and ADHD's activate. I will put if you remind me, I will look up the exact number and put it in a community post about Reed Richards, and maybe I'll break out one of those, and because I always say that I don't want to talk about comic books that I don't like. But I will showcase comics that I don't like to make a point, and I think that would make a wonderful point. The Tom DeFalco Fantastic Four years. Thank you for the idea. So I just love the flying bathtub. But as you can see, there's 2 sections missing. Why are there 2 sections missing? Because Reed is hanging back, inventing something. He's losing his stretching powers. So we got the torch. He doesn't need to sit, and then. Remember, Ben Grimm was the pilot, and she's just sitting back, being a invisible woman in powers and in personality. Look at that panel, and this is such George Perez. These little slice panels of just focusing on that, just heighten the drama and the fear. So what's going on? The police are protecting this guy because they figured out the pattern that these people who own, like, I don't know if it's called the Grayson Bank, or, you know, but it's all of the older partners of Robert Grayson, the original Marvel Boy's father. The business partners are being systematically murdered. So now everybody is figuring out what's going on. Here comes the Fantastic Four, and then evil Machiavellian murder powers activate. He's just burning through the vault, and I don't know. I work in construction, and I just think if you were close enough to see this, this would kill you because these hot vapors would just roast you, especially if you're hiding in nearby. But what it's just cool, and he throws them into a soft force field. I talked about that last time. That's one of the things that is so cool about Sue Storm's powers, and she is by far the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, as John Byrne showed. She can make her force fields of any density. So they could be soft like a pillow, or they could be as hard as like, steel diamond, and anywhere in between. So here he is, he's trying to blast the ball. And Quasar's like, what's going on? Of course, Sue had put up a force field. He's using his light powers. Just, how do they, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what's going on, but they did such a wonderful job with George Perez. Did they coach him? Did they mentor him? Is he trying harder to draw? I don't know. Because I will admit, as much as I love George Perez, there was a little bit of a amateurishness to his Sons of the Tiger run, which I showed a Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. Forgive me, my chair sunk. I showed a Deadly Hands of Kung Fu comic, and I think I'll showcase another one because you need to, like, in that comic. If you ask me, a lot of the characters just look like babies. They just have like an infantile look to them. Not silly infantile, but they have like proportions of babies. It's everybody's got to start. George Perez started, and even when he started, I still loved it. So anyway, I'm rambling. So he smashes his way out to the bank, and I just love all of these little details, the lines. George Perez. George Perez was fighting for his life here. He wanted this gig. You're a comic book artist in the '70s. You want to draw the Fantastic Four. This is it. He's got a chance up at bat. He ain't striking out. And and what did I think he drew up until like 200 or something like that. So he did a good job. So now, of course, fighting's going on, and Robert Grayson's got to explain his story. So here we go, the origin. So I always love that wonderfully hokey Flash Gordon ship. Keep in mind, he debuted in the 50s, but like his origin was supposed to take place in the 30s, which makes a problem for Marvel continuity because it how is he killing the partners of his father? He Marvel Boy, and then I'll explain how they retconned this character. His lifespan was expanded by the magic science of the Eternals. So what? How are these mortals on Earth who took over his father's business in the 30s still alive? That's one of those comic book things. And also, I in this comic, Ben Grimm talks about seeing the giants in the Bronx. That they left in the 50s. So according to the Marvel timeline, how did that happen? But that's one of those things. You hand wave that. That's just such a comic book thing. You hand, like the original Iron Man story was he was in Vietnam. How is he still in Vietnam? But and how is he like a 40-year-old man or a 30-year-old man in Vietnam and then still, in 2023? Well, I think Iron Man now is like a nanite being, whatever. So he's talking about he's living on Uranus, not Myanus. He's living on Uranus, and when he lands there, he meets these aliens. And at this point, they weren't Eternals. Why? Because Jack Kirby didn't create the Eternals yet. Or maybe the Eternals is just about to come out, but they got folded into Eternals, and he lives this idyllic life. They send him back to Earth as Marvel Boy. Marvel Boy, as told in Marvel Boy and Astonishing, circa 1950 to 1951, and reprinted in late 60s. Yeah, I'm on the hunt for those comics. I don't know. I've always liked this character, so I'm kind of looking for those. They're on my want list, my Grail comics, and now he's going around. What is in this panel? My eyes got a little confused. Oh, so he comes back and he's finding that his city is destroyed. So when he comes back to Uranus, his Uranus has been wrecked. Don't you hate that when Uranus has been wrecked? And you see how these panels are thick black? That's indicating, flashbacks. And this drove him mad. So he goes back. And again, I'll talk about this, how they fix the continuity later on. And part of me was always kind of shocked by this comic, knowing not as a kid, I just accepted it because this is how I found out about Marvel Boy. But as later on, I got a couple of reprints of Marvel Boy, and I loved him, and I ended up loving the character. So I always wondered, how did Roy Thomas make this wonderful, like wholesome character of Marvel Boy into this mad murderer? Like, why did he do it? I don't know. Did he hate the character? Because if this was, this was supposed to be Rob Grayson, and look how crazy he's a crazy murderer. To me, there's no coming back from that. Like Steve Ditko said, how many people do you need to kill before you're a murderer? One. How many things do you need to steal before you're a thief? One. And you can never go back. Once you're a thief, you're a thief. So he's a crazed murderer. So there you go. I'm amazed that I like the character so much, knowing my introduction to him was this lunatic. So now look at Ben Grimm over here, and I look at all these little details. To modern I I'm not a comic book artist. I never even entertained the idea of being a Marvel comic book artist. I always wanted to write. I still want to write. I'm working on scripts, but I don't know. So are they using like computer programs with like that draw the backgrounds? Like they just put up a line, and then the computer like fills it in, because this is all hand drawn, as you can tell, because it's not perfect. It looks wonderful, and it's so detailed. And now like I'll read, and I admit I could be wrong, to be fair, because these days all I see is like people reposted panels on Twitter for Modern Marvel, because again, I haven't picked up a Marvel comic since 2015. And whether they like it or they don't like it is besides the point. What I'm saying is I see in the background, there's no details. Like you see a line, and then you'll see another line to indicate that they're in a corner office, and then the whole thing is colored in like tan, but there's no details like that. Now, is that just like computer aided drawing, like an AutoCAD? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know, because this, I George put out a ruler and he did these lines and he added all these cracks. Of course, over here you don't need no background details because this explosion. But I don't know. I'm speculating. I don't know. And then just this, he's knocking him down. He's getting fizzarped. No, I love these. Okay, good morning, Michael. Long time no see. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for stopping in. Let's have a cup of coffee for the newcomers. For our dead homies. They all use computers, 3D models for backgrounds, and it looks boring compared to the good old stuff. Thank you. An actual comic book artist. Thank you. If I might pat myself on the back, this is 40 years of reading comic books. More than that. I'm going to say 50 years. I'm 54 years old, and I will say I started looking at comic books when I was 4. My older brother, who's into horror movies, he used to pick up comics, and then I would get them. And then in 3rd grade, so I was 7. Yeah, 3rd grade, I think I was 7. So 7, I'll split the difference. Instead of 47 years, we'll round it up to 50 years of comic book instincts. I guess that's what I always thought, that it was just like computers just filling in the background detail. And I got to admit, when me and my friends, or my friends and I were drawing comic books, I would draw the thing. I don't want to take out rulers and start drawing the backgrounds. I fully admit that wasn't fun for me. And I imagine that's not fun for most comic book artists. I don't know, but George Perez did it. He's a professional. I loved it. And then there's cheats. Like over here is a cheat, but that cheat works. You don't need, perspective and 3-point perspective. Maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive, but just you don't need all that. But tell me that's not a great panel. That works, And I always say that a comic book is a motion picture, without the motion, but tell me this doesn't create action and movement and dialogue. So this just totally makes sense. Over here, this is drama over here. So he just got zapped in the body. He's smoking. Look at the backgrounds. We just see the the sky and smoke. We don't need it. Over here, you got some rubble over here, but it works. It works, and that's the Perez principle. George Perez said, "Whenever you draw debris, you draw 10 times the amount of debris as the crumbled wall will make. It makes it more dramatic." And he's absolutely right. And it's probably easier to draw all of these potato-looking rocks than it is to do three-point perspective, break out your rule. But you know what? It works. It works. Anybody going to argue that this panel isn't, over here maybe, but whatever. And then you can see a little bit of limitations. How the perspective's a little bit messed up. The or is that called foreshortening? Is a little bit messed up. But geez, like me saying that George Perez did a little bit messed up is like saying like, yeah, Kate Upton's not hot. And this I love, okay? I love this. This is the letters page. I again treat every video as if it's new. This is a caption. When they do this, this is the editor. So this is Roy Thomas talking to us. In case we forget to mention last time, it was originally intended to be a 33. Oh, wow. I must have read this, but I forgot. So these two issues were originally supposed to be an annual, and they got broken up. Oh, light bulb just went off. In the annuals, for those of you who do not know, Marvel Comics, once a year, they would put out an annual, hence the name annual, once a year. And a lot of the times in annuals, they would try out new talent. They would try out something different. So this makes total sense. George Perez was being tried out for the Fantastic Four in an annual, and I guarantee you something happened in the regular time. Somebody's wife was about to give birth. I remember one time there was a fire in one of the artist's house. So, somebody took too long. I remember a few times in very unfortunate circumstances that, death in the family. A few times, because at this time you draw the art and you'd mail it to Marvel. The art got lost in the mail. Oh God, can you imagine that? Lost art by like Jack Kirby or somebody. Where is that thing? Now I want to be Indiana Jones and recover that. So for some reason, sometimes a comic book would not, the schedule would get disrupted. So this was already drawn as a Fantastic Four annual. They had to pull it into the regular. That's why George Perez is the guest artist. Okay, makes total sense. Okay, I can't remember every detail of every comic book that I read, but thanks for pointing this out there, Roy. That makes total sense. So you understand now? This was supposed to be George trying out in an annual. And I will say that these annuals in the 70s and the 80s were important, fun comics. You, as a kid, you couldn't wait to get them. Nowadays, you get the annuals and they're just like some boring tie-in to some 19th tried time of a tie-in that you just don't care about anymore. Atlantis attacks. Come on, knock it off. What is the newest tie-in? And now they don't even do it in the annuals anymore. I don't think annuals come out. They just have tie-in comics. So anyway, this is what got me excited. This is Peter T. Gillis. Why is that important? He became a Marvel writer. So I love that. You can't argue that this Peter T. Gillis didn't love comic books. Here he is as a little kid. He's writing to Fantastic Four, a gushing fan letter. And later on, I learned about him. I first discovered him. I'm sure he was around before that. He drew Star-Lord. I showcased him doing Marvel Spotlight Star-Lord, and then he did the Micronauts. Wonderful comics. And I know he did other stuff, but you know what I mean? Like today's new crop of writers, like could they point back to their nerd credentials of their published, letters that they wrote to Marvel Comics? Michael DeMont, I don't know that name. It's some military, but I don't know that name. But so cool. So cool. Oh, and these Marvel Treasury editions. I did a showcase of one of the Marvel Treasury editions. I think it was 2001. They're gigantic. They're big. They'd come up to here. They're the size of Time magazine. I don't know if people even know that reference anymore, but they were gigantic. And I got this. I got this. I had this, and I think I had another one that's not here, and they got destroyed. Why did they get destroyed? They're too big. As a little kid, I couldn't store them. They were huge, so like you'd buy them and they would get wrecked because they don't really make comic books this big anymore. But it was a wonderful idea. Marvel was great at trying out new things, experimenting with the format, experimenting with the sizes. But they didn't. I don't think they were practical. Now I still don't think they're practical. When I buy them now, oh yeah, the what was the Superman versus Muhammad Ali that big, and the Superman meeting Spider Man, the first Marvel and DC team up. I think they were giant size too, or treasury size, because giant size is a different format, and they just get ruined. And here we go back to this wonderful fight. So we got, again, another cheat. You have a worm's eye view, so you look it up into the sky, so you don't need to do all that perspective drawing because there's nothing in the sky. So you throw some clouds, and that works. That totally works. Human Torch is what's coming? There's a plane coming, and what do we got there? We got Reed Richards on the MacGuffin device. What is the MacGuffin device? So many times back at this point, the Fantastic Four would bite off more than they could chew, and Reed would just, take two Legos, get some crazy glue, a little bit of duct tape, push the button, and the bad guy's defeated. But you know what? It worked for me as a kid. So he's spraying this, and this actually, I'm making a joke, but this actually works. So I'll talk about what Reed's doing in a little bit. But he's showing up on this doohickey. Now I'm turning into Ben Grimm. That's the way he talked. And look at this panel. I know I'm going on and on and on about the backgrounds, but there's ways to cheat. So there's some panels you need the backgrounds. You got to set up the locations in the setting. Hello, Flying Fox Pro. Hola, good to see you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll talk a little bit at the end of this comic, but just again, I love the wonderfully hokey, old fashioned. So Ben just wallops him. I just would like to point out that Sue did nothing. Okay, Sue did absolutely nothing. I take it back. She put up a force field and saved them from a blast, but she did nothing. Even Johnny Storm I can forgive, because the last issue he went toe to toe and by himself, but Sue did nothing. And now we got this classic panel. I'm going to zoom in on that. Look at that. That is just comic books. Tell me, I was this was 1975, so I was 7 years old when this came out. Tell me that's not awesome for a 7-year-old kid. My friend Mike and we probably reenacted this. He was really good at choreographing fights. So I remember we would be in the backyard. We would take. I'm not a big Marvel reader. Does Sue do much at all? Seems like her powers. Yes. I guess you didn't hear at the beginning, but I'm saying Sue is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, and she didn't really come into her own until John Byrne took over the series. So we're talking like around. I'm going to say around. Well, John Byrne took over what 236. So it was around. I'm just to make the math even. We'll say around 250. You start to realize how powerful. Yeah, I know. I same thing. Autocorrect will be the death of me. Around 250. We'll call it around 250. We start to realize how powerful Sue is. But to his credit, Roy Thomas, around here, I don't remember the exact issue. It was like 10 or 15 issues before this. Sue beat the Hulk on her own. She started to do creative. What she did was she put a force field around the Hulk's head, really, really, not really tight, that's around it, but so the Hulk couldn't feel it. Okay, and then what she did was she expanded it so that the air got really thin, and then the thing went and fought him, and the Hulk, the Hulk's got to breathe too. Now, it's been established if the Hulk takes a deep breath, he can hold his breath for hours. But what Sue did was she tricked him. She put the force field, she expanded the air, thing went to battle him, and the Hulk passed out from oxygen deprivation. So again, you are absolutely right. You need a little bit of intelligence with her powers, and a little bit of creativity. But at this point, she wasn't, except for little moments of glory, she wasn't really given her spotlight in the sun. And it wasn't until that issue when she turns into Malice, if anybody remembers that, when she destroys the Fantastic Four, she just beats the crap out of everybody. That's when. Who do you say that Why do you say? I was just saying, read that issue where Sue becomes Malice. She just beats the crap out of the Fantastic Four. Yeah, the first Masterwork. I love those. I love those flying. Those are good comics. The only issue I have is the when they recolored it. It's just a little too bright. So again, you know what? I think I will showcase that. Consider that a request. when Sue displays how she's the most powerful member. So here we got Ben and Quasar just blasted through steel reinforced concrete, and so he's got more powers than Marvel Boy ever had. Marvel Boy couldn't take a punch from the Thing. I don't care what you say. And wonderful ads. Switchblade combs, those were cool. Play guitar in 7 days. Become a horse? No, veterinary assistant. Monsters. My brother had this on the back of the door, and it glowed in the dark. And I was a little kid, and I was scared of it, and I made him get rid of it. Destroy the world. It's just so cool. Just so cool. So what's he doing? He rips the vault off the door. Oh my God! It just smashes the thing. He scrunches them. I love these sound effects. Sploing, puff. Everybody looked like Reed Richards back then. Yes. Oh, like Spider-Man. Yes. Her powers were flexible. I showed at the beginning that she created a force field. Some poor normal guy got thrown and hit Sue's force field, but Sue could control the density of a force field. She could make it soft like a pillow, or she could make it hard like diamond. So that in itself is really cool. And then later on, she would make spatulas and pick things up. I was scared of the X-Files when I was a kid, so my parents made us stop watching it. My brother was super nothing like little kids ruining stuff. Now I will take a pause in today's video and refill my coffee cup. I got my coffee over here. Tim Hortons delicious coffee. Matter of fact, I just used the last of it. I have to do a coffee run today. And now I'm going to turn it to Martha Stewart. I always use this sugar in the raw, but I can't do it one-handed, so I'll just pour it. It's probably going to be too sweet for me. I don't know about you guys. But Reed, what does it mean? Sue I know. Poor girl. All that science stuff that a girl doesn't understand. And then half and half. This is the ultimate cup of coffee. I'm trying to look through the lens and not pour coffee half and half all over the place. Yep. Everybody laugh. Everybody laugh at me. Everybody laugh. And now, I got to move this back. I'm surprised I'm not seeing comments making fun of my silliness. I did think ahead and grab napkins, so there we go. All right. Don't cry over speed. Yeah, exactly. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Oh, God. I'm such a professional, ain't I? Got to stir the coffee, and there we go. Perfect cup of coffee. All right, so there we go. Where was I? But Sue, but Reed, what does it mean? That is really funny, actually, because that's like every third issue. But I love this panel. Oh, you saw this? Yes. This was I backed an alternate spring bundle or summer bundle. I forget which bundle, and I paid extra, and you could pick the artist and you could pick the character. And Josh, what a professional that is. This is actual Josh. And then I got this, and I put it in my back room, and it disappeared. It was gone. T-Bird Throttle is legitimately one of the... Yes. You got to say what I... Yes, you're right. You're right. So and this disappeared. I don't know where it went. I mean, I knew it was in my comic book room someplace, but that might as well be, I thought it fell into a comic book box, and I would discover it eventually, which is exactly what happened. So when I found this, I was so happy. It just slid into a comic book box, like my wedding ring. My wedding ring is in a comic book box. I still haven't found it. I say it to husband all the time, and he rolls his eyes. I don't. I'm in a surprisingly good mood considering that there was a death in my family on Friday, but I won't get into the details. But he 42-year-old guy left with an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. But my family squabbles all the time, but we pull together in tragedies. And yesterday and Friday we all pulled together. We're helping my niece out with now she's a single mom. It's okay, Lacey. So she's not going to want for living situation or anything like that. Everybody offered she could move into their house. It's going to we're going to miss him. The boys are going to miss their dad, but my family pulls together in moments of tragedy. It's actually very nice, and it was good to see a lot of my brothers and sisters because life gets in the way. Everybody we get caught up in our own nonsense. So I know it's weird to say that I'm in a good mood today, but whatever. I don't know. Emotions are weird. Probably maybe tomorrow I'll be sad because tomorrow I'm off of work for 2 weeks. So maybe with nothing to do, I'll just sit there and be upset. But right now, I'm in a good mood because look at this artwork. Enough about that. So just this panel I was going to talk about. This vault door just smashes into the thing. This guy's freaking out. Ben smashes anything. And again, look at all the cheats. Over here, you have to draw that. You have to draw this, but there's no background. You don't need no background. You don't need no background. You don't need a background. And over here, the background is all this debris. So there's no way. There's no way. We have a legitimate comic book artist. We have Fabrizio in the chat. There's no way you're going to use computer stuff to do all of this wonderful background. Like maybe over here, but and you could see limitations in George Perez. This looks like vertical, instead of worm's eye. So I could see why Marvel was trying. But you know what? This would be perfectly acceptable for Marvel today. Back then they were professionals. So now Reed is explaining to him, you're defeated. You're defeated. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna whoop you with my space energy. And I always talk about this. This is Stan's soapbox. This is Stan talking about this. So this is actual written by Stan Lee. He wanted to be a journalist. He wanted to be a writer. He became a comic book artist. You're in a good mood after seeing everybody in my family. Yes, I'm one of 7 kids, and we never get together. I never see my nephews and nieces. Couple of states. You know how it is. Big families move around. So yesterday, even though it was a funeral, it was nice to see everybody. I know that sounds weird, but maybe it's coping. Who knows? And then over here we have this is Bulletins. This is Marvel talking about Marvel's issues. And then we have, what is this? A bullpen extra. So Stan thought of something at the last minute. Now we have, again, the Abomination, aptly named. Oh, the Abomination and the creature of the Abomination. The original Abomination are these fruit pies, the twins of evil. And so now he is trying to overexert. So and I'll explain how Reed defeated him. He's like, what did you do? Oh, no, oh, no. So he's pushing and pushing and pushing. And this is established later on when Wendell Vaughn became Quasar, that if you push the bands, if you use them too aggressively, like you have to use the Feng Shui or the Taekwondo. I don't know the exact, but I think of like Avatar, the last airbender, the waterbenders, how they flow. Yes, this is Civ on the computer. I'm really bad. I just leave this up and it runs too long and then my computer will crash because it's constantly processing this. But I just leave it on and, I'll push a button every once in a while. I just find the music soothing. I put it on the marathon game, the biggest world. And so each game will take me like 3 weeks. And I just, I don't even take it too seriously. I just like it. I like watching my ships move. I like watching the roads be built, and then unfortunately they'll attack me and I get annoyed, but whatever. I just find it to be soothing and relaxing. So as I read comic books, the music will play in the background and I'll take a turn or so every couple of pages. I don't know. My wife laughs at me. It's the only video game I play. I don't play video games and I don't like Civ 6. I like Civ 5. So anyway, like the waterbenders, they're always explaining. If you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon, watch it. It's wonderful. They flow like water. The energy flows around them, and that's what you have to do with these quantum bands. But now he's panicking, so he's pushing and pushing and pushing, causes the feedback, and he explodes. And that's the death. For all intents and purposes, that's the death of one of Marvel's original characters. He went crazy, murdered people, and blew up. Very, I don't know, undignified. And they're like, what happened? So Reed, of course, deduced that it was solar powered. Later on, it becomes quantum powered, but he's crazy. So he's solar powered, and that smoke that Reed blotted out the sun, and the particles adhered to him, and it reflected the sunlight off him. So he wasn't absorbing powers, and he was pulling too much powers, and he blew up. Okay, see you, Flying Fox. This will be posted. For a little bit of side note, if when I post this, it takes about 24 hours for the live chat to also post. So instantly the video will go up, but like 24 hours later, the live post will go up. So I always rewatch my videos to make sure everything was okay. And but I don't watch the live post until like Monday because I want to see the live chat. But anyway, so they're still realizing that these guys were criminals. So the thing is, like, you caused all this. Ultimately, your nastiness and bad behavior caused all this. You didn't know that a superhero was going to go on a murderous rampage, but you knew you were doing something wrong. So he's bringing them to the police, and look at all the rubble over here, and now the Fantastic Four. Oh, the Thing and the Hulk versus the So next issue. Okay, I was wrong. Next issue, Sue, spoiler alert, beats the Hulk 1-on-1. And here we have these lousy costumes. This one was always my most hated comic book, my most hated costume. At least that looks like Spider-Man, at least that kind of, but the Hulk doesn't wear a shirt with his face on his chest. These costumes were awful. And then we got these patches and posters, such a product of their time. Look at that moon face, Grateful Gold. Just a product of their time. And then we got the back ad. Look who's smiling now. Me, because this comic is in near mint condition. So there you go. Now, I told you I was going to fill you in on a little of the details. So in Agents of Atlas, I think that came out around 2005. I showcased the very first issue. Drinking my coffee, that I spilled all over my table. Excuse me. They brought back Marvel Boy, and it was Rob Grayson. But how could it be Rob Grayson when Rob Grayson blew up real good over here? Well, that's not Rob Grayson. The Eternals, Rob Grayson went back to Uranus. So here he is. He I'm almost annoyed at myself for making these stupid Uranus jokes. But Bob Grayson went back to Uranus, and he went into suspended animation, because that's what superheroes do. Every superhero sooner or later is going to go into suspended animation. And this is an Eternal named Thelion. And Thelion was hypnotized into thinking he's Rob Grayson, and he went back to Earth to do some underhanded stuff. And it became retconned that the Eternals on Uranus, again, I'm just a child and I'm trying not to giggle, were criminals. They were exiled from all the other Eternals. So little bit of deep dive into the Eternals. So you had the Eternals. Now, when Jack Kirby created the Eternals, they were supposed to be the gods of the earth. The Roman gods, the Greek gods, the Mayan gods, the Egyptian gods. That was the explanation for the gods. And they were not part of Marvel Comics proper. No such thing as too many Uranus jokes. Okay, all right, there we go. I appreciate the fact that we're all a bunch of silly children. Yay. Now I'm giggling. All right. The Eternals was canceled after 19 issues and one annual. And, that's no big deal, because Jack Kirby was creating a lot of comics that got canceled. He was just a factory. Like almost like a machine. Like nobody, just this creative, almost supernatural force for coming up with ideas and artwork and just, there's nobody like Jack Kirby. I really, really revere Jack Kirby. So he got canceled. He moves on to the next thing. The only Marvel tie-in in the Eternals comics was in issue 3. They had the cosmic-powered Hulk robot. Why? Because they wanted to sell the comic. And Jack Kirby, even though he wanted it to be separate from Marvel, he knew he had to throw in some sort of, he had to give us some sort of prize. The Hulk is in this comic. And then it turned out to be it was an in-world. Somebody was the fan of the Hulk, built a robot, and it fought Icarus, which that Hulk robot actually was brought back later on in proper Marvel. So now Thor comes out, one of my favorite Thor runs of all time. Keith Pollard on art, Roy Thomas writing it. They brought the Eternals into Marvel proper and finished the story that Jack Kirby created. So now the Eternals were folded in, but how do you have gods, like the actual gods, Thor, Zeus, Mercury, and then the people who pretended to be the gods? It was fiddly is the best way I could describe it. So that was always just like a hiccup in Marvel. They should have folded them in a little bit better, because they're redundant, both sides. But anyway, that's besides the point. So now we have the Eternals. They were around forever. there was a schism in the Eternals, and most of them stayed on Earth, and then a bunch of them flew off and went to Titan. They lived on the moon of Saturn, and the Titanian Eternals is where we get Thanos and where we get Eros, who became Star Fox. Now, some of the from Titan were exiled to Uranus. You must go to Uranus. So that was just a nice way of stick your head up your ass, right? Go to Uranus, and they lived in I forget if it was a moon of Uranus or if, like a floating city, because it was a gas giant, but I don't know if they made it a gas giant back then. Uranus is a gas giant, and those were like exiles. So I forget if they were exiles from Earth or exiles from Titan, but they were the bad guy Eternals, the misfits, and on Uranus, there were these like Lovecraftian protoplasmic squid-like Uranians that lived there, and they let the Eternals live there under specific conditions. And one of the conditions is they're not going to mess with indigenous life forms throughout the universe. You could live here in exile like us. Keep your presence on. And they sent out a telepathic message to Rob Grayson. They brought him here to get news of the Earth, and then kept him here because he was too good. Sent Crusader back to Earth to mess with. I think they said that they were trying to draw out the Earth Eternals for whatever reason. So this is not Robert Grayson. It's been retconned that he's an Eternal, and he blew up because he misused the thing. And then the Uranians, the true aliens, the glob-like creatures, they got pissed that the Eternals broke their pact and destroyed them all. So they're gone. So the Eternals on Uranus are gone, and then they took Rob Grayson, who was innocent of all this, and they since his artificial environment was destroyed, he's only a human, granted an enhanced human, not an Eternal. He couldn't survive without enhancements, so they surgically redid his organs so that it's kind of creepy and it's kind of cool at the same time. He looks and he goes by the code name the Uranian now, because now there's a new Marvel boy. So Robert Grayson, I'll just say Robert Grayson to make it easier. He looks like a human in that he has bilateral symmetry. He has the two arms and head, but inside all of his internal organs are completely different. And when he eats, like a tentacle comes out of his stomach. Like, is that a snail? How they stick their stomachs out and then devour everything and pull? That's what he does. He's almost like, what is that called? A gastropod, mollusk. I don't know. But so he's totally alien, and his motivations are alien. I really do like Agents of Atlas. I showcased the first issue, and maybe I'll go back to visit it because I seem to be talking about it a lot. So there you go. This is my introduction to Marvel Boy. I don't know how I ended up liking him so much after they made him a murdering crazy person, but right around this time, they did a reprint, Marvel Super Action #1, and it showcased the early Marvel Boy comics, and I really liked it. I thought it was a fun comic. I liked the character, and kids are weird. Who's with me? That somebody requested Deathlock, and I showcased the first issue of Deathlock. You could look it up. The Astonishing Tales, I think 24 or something like that. It was the first appearance of Deathlock. And Deathlock became my character, meaning nobody else was a fan of him. So I became a fan of him, and it was precious to me that nobody else cared about him. So that became like my character. And kids could be like that, weirdly possessive about something. And became the same thing with Marvel Boy. I became weirdly possessive. He was my character. There was a couple of characters that, like, I remember I found out about the Silver Surfer, and I thought he was like a weird exotic character that nobody knew about. And then when I talked about it, I was like, oh yeah, I love the Silver Surfer. I was like, I hate the Silver Surfer because I thought he was mine. You know what I mean? So with sour grapes. But that's the way kids are. So there you go. That's today's Sunday Comics. Been talking for an hour. I see there's still 5 people in the chat. I bored away a couple. That's fine. Some people have to go to church. That's fine. Anybody want to ask anything? Anybody want to say anything? Anybody have any comments to say? I keep saying you don't have to be a comic book creator. You just have to be a person who likes comics. And if you want to come on and have a conversation and talk, you got something to say, email me at John's Longbox, no apostrophe. So John's Longbox at yahoo.com. Tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll talk. I'm starting to think that like Wednesdays 7 p.m. will be like guest time. Like I had my friend Pete. Pete's I don't want to say pizza nobody. He's one of my friends. He's a finance guy. He's not a comic book guy, but he loves comic books, and I thought that went really well. Granted, I know Pete, so he helped me test out whether or not I could talk with people and if it would work. Then I had Brian Bow on, which was just phenomenal. I'm in the next Wednesday. I'm going to have Tonic Mole of Saving the World fame on at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. I'm excited about that. He is. I haven't even spoke with him yet, but he just makes me laugh. Something about his humor that makes me laugh. He's immature like me. And then I'm in the talks with somebody else. So anybody else want to come on talk? Whether you're a comic book creator or not, doesn't matter. What matters is the love of comic books. So I think that we'll try that out. See how long that lasts. And I'm enjoying that. I enjoy talking to people. And maybe at some point I'll have like 1 million people, and we'll be like the Brady Bunch. So I'll talk about comic books. All right, you can watch me all spill milk. All right. So thanks a lot, everybody. I'm going to go take my wife out to my favorite restaurant for breakfast, and we're going to have a good day. And, I'll see you tomorrow with another video. I just missed a day, but I'm sure you can understand. I'm off for 2 weeks, so I'm going to try to prep up a bunch. I want this week to do all of my requests. I keep pestering people for requests, and then things go crazy with requests. So I want to try to do all the requests this week. So if you have a request, I made a post in the community post asking for requests. Post it there, because that's where I'm going to look for requests. And I've been going through the comments, and I saw that there was some requests. Good day, Lacey. I've been seeing that there's some requests that I forgot about. That's not on you. That's on me, because I got a baby brain. All right. So thanks a lot, everybody. This was a lot of fun. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk, and I'm going to go. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.